My name is Casey Collins and I'm the CEO of Prairie Meats. And today I want to share some of our family favorites that we get from Prairie Meats that helps us get through the busy times. We all have busy lives with families and activities, and I'm hoping that some of these ideas might help you spend more quality time with your family at mealtime rather than just running around. Today what we're going to prepare is one of my family favorites. My kids love tacos. And you know, a lot of times we buy the pulled pork from Prairie Meats, but sometimes my kids just want a beef taco. And one of the things we do is we grab some different ingredients and we do it from scratch, especially on a Sunday afternoon when we have time, because this takes a little bit more time than maybe a weekday thing, but it's a great item and you make it on a Sunday and it lasts all week. So first thing you do is you go visit your local butcher at Prairie Meats. Walk in and tell them what you want to do and they'll recommend the right piece. So today our local butcher recommended a beautiful boneless chuck eye roast. So what we'll do is we'll cut right into this and we'll start at the most important part of any meal, and that's seasoning the meat. So what we have here, we'll just put the paper out, is we have a beautiful chuck eye roast that they've trimmed up and ready to go. If you need it netted, they can do that, but we don't need to for this exercise. You can see it's about a 2.5 pound piece of chuck. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna season that up. So, take my hands off, and we're gonna go through some basic seasoning that I like to use on this. So, what we have here is I got 5 different spices. So I got a little cayenne pepper, some red chili flakes, some smoked paprika, some garlic salt, and some oregano. So you don't need to get any oil on it because this recipe, it's gonna be cooking in some lard in the slow cooker. So you just wanna get the dry spice blend on. So you take a little bit of everything here, take the oregano, and you wanna coat the whole piece with all the spices and give it a good literal coat all the way through. And don't worry, that's why I do it on the paper here, so that you can actually, anything that falls over at the end, it'll pick it back up. It's a great way to keep your counter clean and utilize what they gave you with that. So I'll take a little bit of garlic salt. I'm just gonna sprinkle that over all sides. Okay. And then we'll take a little bit of the cayenne pepper. Now this one, I'm using it a little bit more literally than, a little bit, I guess, heavier than I normally would, same with the chilies, but it does cook off and it adds a little bit to the sauce after, which you'll get a good view of. And then we do the chili flakes. Again, just give it a little coating. And if it falls on the paper, don't worry. And then the smoked paprika. Okay. So just take the rest of them here and you're going to see it. I'm just going to dump the rest on the plate, on the thing there. And then I'm going to take a little bit of kosher salt and I'm just going to coat that as well. A bit of salt on the plate. Okay. And then some fresh cracked pepper. So then after I do all that, I take it and I use the paper and I actually kind of press the leftover spices back into the meat. You want it well coated. Get it into any of the nicks, little crannies and stuff that we have here between the fat. Okay. Perfect. So you can see it's well coated, lots of spice. All right, so now that we have the meat seasoned, we'll start getting the rest of the pieces together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sear off the meat and get it nice golden brown prior to putting it into the slow cooker or the pressure cooker. You can do either way. I like the pressure cooker because it gets it done within an hour. If you put it in a slow cooker, you're probably looking at 4 to 6 hours. This is an easier way to get your meal done in an hour period, but the same methods apply. So what we're gonna do is like a confit style. So we're gonna put in some lard into the pressure cooker, and then we're gonna add some other liquids, which would be some orange juice, and then we're gonna add a little bit of onion. And between that and the spices, that will cook the meat in about an hour with that formula. So let's get the pressure cooker going. And if you don't have one of these, you can just use a Dutch oven, any of those kind of things, but this speeds up the process, right? So we're going to just hit the saute mode right now for 30, and we're going to take our lard. I got 1 pound of lard. Now you can use different fats. You could use a tallow, you could use something, but traditionally lard is probably the best way to do it. We want to put that in there and let that just melt down. And we're going to add 1 small onion. So we're just going to chop that up really thin. It doesn't matter how you do it, because it's all just going to break apart in the sauce that you have at the end. So I'm just going to take that first layer off. I'm just going to do a quick chop. Don't worry about the thickness. So put that to the side. And I'm going to throw in a couple chilies for our jalapeno peppers. I like giving it a little bit of heat, but not too much, because again, I have some young children and they haven't quite got to love what heat will do. So we'll get rid of most of the seeds with this. Okay. We're just going to give it a quick chop. There going. And you can put in other things. You could add a little bit of garlic. You could add peppers. I just start with those 2 as my base and add a little bit more flavor otherwise with the peppers and such after, which I'll show you. So take a look here. So the lard is slowly melting. So what we can do is just throw those into a bowl. Once that lard is melted, we can add those in. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for that to melt down, we get our pan going to sear the chuck eye. So I'm going to do it on about a medium heat. And on this one, I'm going to add a little bit of our Prairie Meats beef tallow. Again, just to get that going. So I'll add that to the pan. And once that gets melted down and at a good heat, medium to, I'm going to say medium on mine, you might want to go medium high depending on what kind of stove you have. And let that get going. So this dish takes a little bit of time, but like I said, it adds, a little bit more flavor doing it this way. It holds for a week, so you can make it on a Sunday, you can have it on Tuesday for Taco Tuesday, you can have it 5 days later. It actually freezes really well when you do it. I like it because I can get a nice piece of meat like a chuck eye roll, which is going to break down. There's a little bit of fat in there. But when I talk to the butchers, they know they trim off a little bit of the extra, so there's not too much fat. You just get exactly what you need to do this. And if you don't like the chuck eye, there's 3 or 4 other options that one of our guys will take care of you and make sure that you get the piece that works best for you. So our pan is getting nice and hot. Just want to spread that out a little bit. And so when you put it in, you want to make sure you get sizzle. So you can hear that little bit of a sizzle, and we want to get that so it gets nice and brown. So probably want to leave it on there for about 3 to 5 minutes each side. Don't worry if it gets a little crispy, it's going to break down once you put it into the pressure cooker, and it's going to kind of go away. Those brown bits will go away, and then at the end of it you're going to want those back anyways, because that's what makes a good taco. So the lard is melting nicely there. So I'm going to add the onions and the peppers to it right now. And we're going to just give it a little stir. Okay. One of the other things I like to add to it, add a little bit more liquid, so I add a little bit of orange juice, about a cup and a half into there. And then I will add a little bit of kosher salt to season it, a little bit more. Alright, so that's going, getting warm. So you can see we got a nice little bit of brown on that one, and we want to get all the sides. We'll turn it up like that. Let that go. And this is coming together nicely now. Alright, so we've seared off our beef, and it's going to be ready, but what we're going to do is we're just going to take a little bit more orange juice, and we're going to put it in the pan to deglaze all that meat that came off when we were searing it. We get all that flavor. Got most of that done. Turn that off. And I'm just going to pour that right into the pan. Set that aside. Okay. So we got the lard is all broken down. We've got the onions, we've got the jalapenos in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add our 2 pieces of chuck eye into there. And I want to make sure they're almost all the way covered, if not totally submerged, which they are. And just going to set so 1 hour and just let that go. And oops, perfect. So that will lock in, and it'll go for 1 hour, and then we'll let it do a slow release, and then from there our meat will be ready. So while the meat is getting ready, what you want to do is start preparing what you want to put into it. So there's 2 ways that you can do them. The ones that I like to do is I take the shredded meat, I have little soft tortilla shells, I dip it into the liquid that's left, and then I fry it up with a little bit of cheese and the meat. But I do like to have a little bit of kind of a fresh salsa that can go with the meat. So we're going to start prepping that. So we're going to make a quick little salsa, and we'll start with a nice little red pepper. And we're just going to do a quick dice. And I'm not going to use the whole pepper. I'll use 3 sides. Make sure it's all clean. And we're just going to do a quick dice. I like it really fine. You can do it a little bit thicker depending on what you like. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a little bit of a dice there. Put that into the bowl. And I like to use this not just on tacos. I kind of use it on everything. I like a little mixed with that. So I'm going to take orange pepper. Do the same thing. Have a couple sides. I'm going to dice through that. This is where, depending on your kids, your spouse, or whatever, you can kind of play with this. I do different versions with just peppers and tomatoes. Sometimes I like to add in fruit. I'll add in pineapple, mango, give it a little sweetness. It all depends on what you like to do. And that's the beauty of it. No two are the same. So I'm going to take a tomato here. Top off. And just gonna cook. Slices. Now, I've worked over my years. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of chefs in the province and outside of the province, and I've learned a lot from them. Proper cutting techniques, not necessarily one of the things I learned from them, but I did learn how not to cut my fingers by keeping them out of the way. But you know, I'm not an expert, so just remember that. Like most home cooks, we might do things a little different than our friends, the chefs. But if any of them want to teach me how to do it properly, I would love to get a lesson. So we got some peppers, we got some tomatoes. I'm going to add in a little bit of lime juice to it. So I just take a fork and squeeze that lime juice out. You know what? I'm going to throw in too, just because it's got a little bit of kick to this. Let's throw in one of the jalapenos as well. Cut that off. Those. Again, you can leave the seeds in. The seeds are where the heat are, but try to get rid of most of them. My children, again, are not the biggest fans of heat. What we'll do is we'll give this 2 or 3 cuts in each one. And just chop there. Peppers, the tomatoes, the jalapenos, and lime juice, and 2 more things. I like a little bit of cilantro into there too, just to give it a little bit more flavor. Not everybody likes cilantro, either you love it or you hate it. A little bit of pepper, a little bit of kosher salt. Take a spoon, give it a little mix. What I do with this is, with the tacos, I grill them up like I said, get a little bit of color on them on the grill, and then I use this on top of them, and it kind of goes well. Adds a little bit of texture, a little bit of flavor to them. But yeah, just a real simple mix, nothing special, and you can customize it to whatever you want. But this goes well with tacos. I put it on salads, anything like that. It just adds a little bit of, I'm going to say, flavor and fun to your meals. So that is the next step of our dish.
All right. So our chuck eye has been in the pressure cooker for an hour, so we let that full cycle go through, and then we did a slow release for about 20 minutes. So I've pulled out one of the pieces that we had put in there. So here is what you end up with. You end up with some nice pieces of beef that you can now take your fork, and you can see how beautifully it just shreds apart. And what we want to do is just take all that meat, and we want to give it a little bit of a shred so that it's in fine strands. You can see how easy that just comes apart, and it's just going to be awesome. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to assemble our little tacos here. So I got little shells like this, which are great. So I take them and I put them right into what we cooked our beef in, and then I let them drip a little bit because you want to get that flavor right into the shell. And you can hear that sizzle from them. So we're going to get 3 of these going. Give them a good little dip like that. And we get all 3 going. And then we will take a little bit of mozzarella cheese. Now you don't have to use mozzarella, but I find that it gets the consistency I want from these tacos. It gets them to bind together and hold the meat in, and just gives it a little bit extra on there. So we got our shells, then we take our meat that we shredded up, and we put a little bit on each taco. You don't want to overfill it because then they won't close. So we take a little bit of meat in all 3. Oops. Okay. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be exact. And then what we want to do is we want to do a quick fold over and push it down. So you get a little closed taco there, and let them cook it there. So you take all 3 and you just give them a quick little flip over. Oops. You gotta be careful so you don't want to burn yourself. We'll add that there. We got one more. And you want to just turn it over. Oops. And give it a little push, like that. And then we'll let them brown up so they get nice and crispy on both sides. We'll let it go for not very long. Like, it doesn't take long with that oil from there. You just want to give them about a minute on each side. Enough for the cheese to melt, get a little color on them. Oops. And yeah, these are about ready to pull off and get plating. Okay, so we got our 3 little tacos here. So what I like to do is I just like to do a simple plate out. I'll put 3 of them nicely in the center of a plate. You don't have to get this fancy, but it is nice. And then I take our fresh salsa, the pico, whatever you want to call it, and I just do a nice spoonful on each one. Now, you don't have to do this. Some people want to just eat it, maybe put a nice cream sauce, but I like to do a little flavor there. And then I take a little bit of the fresh cilantro, and I'm just going to give it a rough chop and just kind of sprinkle that on top. And that's it. Real simple, easy meal. And as you can see, when you cut into these and you break it apart, you got a nice gooey cheese with that meat, and it's one of our family favorites, and hopefully it'll become one of yours. Thank you.